Welcome back to the Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking about you and your business. Got on Lee Kaplan. He is phenomenal, a regular contributor on the Price of Business. Occasionally we can get him in on extra segments, but he's always on at least a couple times a month, and we're delighted to get him on today. He's with a great law firm. You can learn more about them at skv.com. That's skv.com. And before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your firm, Lee, before we jump into our topic today?
Sure. The firm is called Smizer, Kaplan, and Veselka, and rather than spell it, I would just say go to the website, skv.com. We're basically a litigation firm, which means trials, arbitrations, and appeals. And while we mainly specialize in civil litigation, we occasionally have white-collar criminal matters as well, and private investigations or internal investigations done by companies when there's a question about employee wrongdoing, which can include breaches of fiduciary duty, self-dealing, things like that. But our primary focus is litigation.
Yeah, very good. Tell us what you have for us as far as the topic. You always bring something to us that I think is very important, food for thought.
Well, there are two things I want to talk about today, or I think are interesting. One is the BP decision that just came out in the Deepwater Horizon, which Judge Barbier found that BP was grossly negligent. And second, a Texas-related decision or Texas-related issue, which is that we still elect all of our state court judges. And I think being brought face-to-face yesterday with an example of how that creates problems, that we've got to change the system. To start with the BP...
let's start with the BP. You can jump into that.
Well, this is, of course, a hotly contested matter. It's remained in the headlines. BP has, of course, complained about the settlement claims administrator, but this is a very, very important and dangerous problem for BP, which is now that they've been found by a judge to be grossly negligent, they say they're going to appeal, but those are fact findings, and fact findings are very hard to overturn on appeal, and it ups the stakes for BP considerably because it means for every barrel, the penalties can be a lot higher under the federal statute. So, and it makes it just, in general, harder for them to get free of this problem. It's a big deal, and it's, for them, a lot of money. And
how much money are we talking about?
Well, I think the number that I saw perhaps in the Chronicle this morning was something like $18 billion, really a serious number. And that finding by the judge, which to me was not unexpected, while Transocean and Halliburton were found partially at fault, BP was essentially found two-thirds at fault and grossly negligent. And when a judge looks at particular things that BP chose not to do shortly before the accident and says that these are important matters, I just think it's very difficult for an appellate court to overturn those findings. You've got a veteran judge who heard all this evidence, and
so you think that they're looking at $18 or $19 billion?
Well, what they're probably looking at is finding a way to settle this, but remember, that number, I think, relates only to the question of how much they may have to pay just in terms of the fines on a per-barrel basis. And the number I think I heard just on that is $18 billion. That has nothing to do with all the other spill costs and compensation and the like. I think my recollection is the total number is thought to be something like $40 to $50 billion. So you've got real money. And
real money.
And I believe that when this happened yesterday, I think BP stock went down something like 5%. Just like that, they erased $8 or $9 billion in market value. So, as they say, it used to be $1 million here, $1 million there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. Now it's $1 billion here, $1 billion there, and this is multiple billions. So That's a
lot of money.
significant, meaningful development, and it's one of these things where I would have to say it was probably not totally unexpected, but it certainly had an effect on their stock yesterday. I think their stock is up a little bit today, but gross negligence finding has a lot of, and the dollars involved will have a big impact on its operations. It's been slimming down, and it's tried to, sell assets to have enough cash, but, they're the largest, I believe they're the largest producer of oil and gas in the continental United States.
Yes, but the company is BP, British Petroleum. So, could they end up not being in business? I mean, that's a lot of money, but it seems like they could figure out how to make that work.
I doubt that. I mean, they made more money last year than the total fines from this, just last year. So, sure, it put a big dent in them, but these things have a way over time of being resolved. May be tough, but I would, look, I'm not a stock market analyst or a financial analyst, and so I don't know any more than what the experts say about this, but I'd be surprised if this means that they go out of business. And
you and I both know they've got a lot of insurance to mitigate some of this.
I'm not sure about, and I don't know if you can buy insurance against, whether they have insurance against findings that involve gross negligence. I don't know about that. It's possible.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's a big deal.
This is a huge deal. Yeah, this could be a deal breaker. Well, it could be at least injurious, and of course, ultimately, it could end up even affecting gas prices itself. We'll have to see that.
Well, maybe, but what I think it's really going to do is it will, if not increase awareness, it will maintain the heightened awareness for safety in this industry. This is a dangerous industry, offshore and onshore, and despite all the improvements, stuff happens. And the judge actually, talked about some decisions made shortly before this accident happened that makes it clear he feels it was preventable. And because of that, I think that'll keep the focus on safety. You save a lot of money in the long run by spending a few extra millions, as it would have been for BP, to save billions. That reflects every business has those concerns, and in the long run, because of the cost of the litigation process and the increasing criminalization of things that happen in business, everybody is well advised to pay attention to anything connected to worker safety.
I interviewed a lot of people immediately after the event took place, and it was a common theme that that particular company, BP, in spite of the fact it's a Western company, it's not something from South America or whatever, it's British Petroleum, actually had a reputation of being a little rogue and a little into shortcuts and that type of thing. So I got a feeling this might change their culture.
Well, that's something I might disagree with. Having sat through the Deepwater Horizon investigation proceedings, I realize people said that. I did not get that idea. I think that, to me, I've always likened this to the Challenger disaster. People do get complacent. They make mistakes. And in the cold light of day, some of the people involved in making those mistakes may have really been calloused or unthinking. But I don't buy into the idea that BP, particularly under Tony Hayward when he was in charge after Sir John Brown, was that kind of company. But, leadership, the culture somewhat comes down from leadership, and if leadership exercises too light a hand, it gives room for people to make mistakes that ultimately can have fatal consequences, and they're paying the price for that.
Lee, we went pretty long on this particular topic, but I did want you to mention the other one again, and maybe something we need to do in more length in a future conversation, but your thoughts? Well,
I really believe that election of judges, where you have partisan elections of judges, are a bad thing. I think they're dangerous. While I understand about letting democracy work its way and all, my view is that because lawyers end up having a role in the election process and making contributions, it puts judges and lawyers in a difficult situation. I frequently have cases where I am in a judge's court, I'm going to trial sometime in the near future, or there are important hearings coming up, and the judge is having a fundraiser. And, there's nothing venal about a judge having a fundraiser. They have to do that in order to campaign. And then the question to you as a lawyer, do you go or not? And earlier usually, do you contribute or not? Our firm generally makes contributions to incumbent judges who we believe are capable, competent, and deserving of reelection, because with continuity, the docket moves more smoothly, and it moves more smoothly under judges who are able. So even the best rookie judges, new judges, have to learn a lot of things. And what that means, though, is that lots of incumbent judges can get turned out just by a Democratic or a Republican landslide in a particular county, and or that other counties are known to be Democratic or Republican counties. We'd be better off, I think, if somebody, either a judicial commission recommended people, or the governor sent to the governor, or the governor made appointments, and then people had to be kind of retained in an up or down election in some fashion that didn't involve party opposition, because it just puts everybody in a bad situation. And people in other states, I think, sometimes avoid Texas despite our friendly business climate, because they're worried about the litigation environment. They know that there's elected judges. Now, I will say this: if you're a Texas lawyer, you get hired as a local counsel maybe more often simply because of this partisan election system. But I just think that's wrong.
Lee, got to call it done. Great segment. Thanks so much for being with us. Great insight as usual. We'll have this audio over at usdailyreview.com, the national news website. Make sure you check it out there, as well as at priceofbusiness.com. And you can learn more about Lee at skv.com. That's skv.com. Smicer, Kaplan, and Veselka. When we come back, much more for you right here on The Price of Business.